All right, stand by. 10 seconds to go.
Talent.
Ready, camera.
And
Three,
two,
one.
Roll for record.
The media hires another White House hack. I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. The White House and the news media prove they have learned nothing as CNN hires outgoing senior Obama advisor Dan Pfeiffer as a contributor. You may remember Pfeiffer as the guy who told CBS's Face the Nation that it was irrelevant who wrote the famously false Benghazi talking points, claiming a protest over a YouTube movie was to blame. That was for the killing of our ambassador and others. And he also said it wasn't a terrorist attack. Let's take a look.
The question isn't who edited what talking points. That's largely irrelevant. What is relevant is what are we going to do to make sure that never happens again, which is why the President's calling on Congress to pass legislation to beef up embassy security around the world and protect our diplomats.
Initially, I thought calling him a hack was too harsh, but after seeing that, I'm glad I did. This was a crucial distinction, by the way, because at the time the administration was claiming victory in the war on terror, a claim that seems to be laughable now. But he was determined to go on TV and purposely mislead, that's important, purposely mislead the American people. That was his job. He also got in hot water on ABC's This Week, claiming the law is irrelevant when considering if the IRS was targeting conservatives for special tax punishment.
I can't speak to the law. The law here, the law is irrelevant. The activity was outrageous and inexcusable, and it was stopped. It needs to be.
And at Netroots Nation, he upset the left by trying to justify the president's anti-gay marriage position back in 2011.
If you actually go back and look, that questionnaire was actually filled out by someone else, not the president. There was a long debate about this.
So it's a fake questionnaire.
So what I'll tell you is the president's position has been consistent on this, but what he has said.
When you get booed at Netroots, not good. And then there was the one time that he tweeted the N-word. Whoops! Although that one does seem to be a genuine mistake. This is a guy who is constantly getting in trouble because there's a big difference between carrying water for the president or the Democratic Party and keeping the public informed on political issues. The two goals are not just incompatible, but they're mutually exclusive. The media has apparently learned nothing from George Stephanopoulos, the Clinton Foundation scandal, if they immediately turn around and hire yet another blatant partisan. But clearly, the thrill of having someone so close to Obama was just impossible for CNN to resist. We should also never forget this is a two-way street. The White House hired at least 24 different high-profile journalists to work for the Obama administration, and now that things are winding down, those same people are going back to the news media. Why is the media so fatally addicted to hiring White House hacks? To explore this question and much, much more, we turn to our pal Scott Ott, PJTV contributor from his home studio in Dallas, Texas, and here in drizzly Southern California, stand-up comic and PJTV contributor Stephen Kruiser.
Raining in June.
June gloom.
No, the June gloom is overcast. There's no rain. We don't have weather.
Fresh out of May Gray.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on this because the news media seems addicted to hiring these people.
Yes.
We've seen it with Jay Carney. We've seen it with any number of MSNBC analysts. Could you see a scenario where this guy, Dan Pfeiffer, who is among the worst of the worst from the White House, isn't just doing political talk, he's not serving as a guy from the left, but could you see him eventually becoming a George Stephanopoulos where he's delivering the straight news?
Oh, I could see them morphing into that quickly with this guy. And he's got that punky frat boy thing about him that's so annoying. But this says something to me about CNN right now. You know, CNN for several years tried to play it as the middle ground station. They're between Fox and MSNBC. That's the way they were portraying themselves, and they tanked in the ratings. They went absolutely nowhere. Now they've started to get a little more partisan again recently, just slightly, ever so much. And as MSNBC is faltering, I think they see an opportunity to start plucking away some of the less yay Bernie Sanders types from MSNBC, and I think that they're deliberately moving leftward again, like they were like they were 10 years ago, let's say. I think that's what this is all about. That's the first thing I thought when they hired him. I said they're admitting now that this is a better ratings ploy for them to be a more left-leaning news organization.
Hey, Scott, let me put my tinfoil hat on here for a second, because a lot of these companies, and CNN is owned by Time Warner, which is a big one, want to acquire other companies, or they want to become cable systems, or they want to do something that requires government regulatory approval. Do you see any type of connection between the hiring of White House hacks and these large companies that are employing them wanting something out of it in terms of lobbying, in terms of government favors, and not just necessarily good television?
Sure. I don't think that's a tinfoil hat theory. I mean, I think you're buying influence and access when you make a hire like this. Although I'm not so sure that it's really, you know, the White House hiring people from the mainstream media or the mainstream media hiring people from the White House. It's more like a departmental transfer within one organization. I mean, they're just being moved to a different responsibility, you know? So, you know, today you had the news desk beat at CNN. Tomorrow you'll have the White House beat behind the podium as you speak to the other reporters. It's all the same universe for them. And beyond the hiring aspect of it, if you start looking into who's married to whom in the White House and in the mainstream media, you'll find there's a lot of interconnection there, too. This has been... It goes on to a certain degree in Republican administrations, but the Obama administration has raised it to an art form. I mean, we had Tony Snow as the president's press secretary, but this has become literally, the two have become one flesh, as the scriptures say.
Well, here's what's different between the Republicans and the Democrats. The Republicans all go to Fox, with few exceptions, Matthew Dowd being one of them, who went to ABC, and Nicole Wallace, who ended up going to The View and MSNBC. The Democrats have spread the White House spokesman all over the landscape. They're working for ABC, they're working for NBC, they're working for MSNBC, they're working for CBS, they're working across the board, NPR, PBS. And they have more influence at driving the narrative than the Republicans do, all because they're all at one shop.
And the key difference is, you know, we keep saying the White House, the White House, the White House. They only hire people from Democrat White Houses. They don't hire them from Republican White Houses, as you said.
And if they do, it's David Gergen.
Yeah, and I'm glad, yes, well, I was going to get to that right now. That's where I'm getting to this. When the left-leaning organizations hire someone from a Republican, it's only a useful idiot Republican. It's only one who will frequently say Republicans are bad. Nicole Wallace, you know, Palin basher number one. Gergen, who wakes up in the morning and says Reagan was stupid before he opens his eyes. He's built his entire career on it. They will only hire useful idiots, and they won't hire a Republican who will represent a responsible opposing viewpoint. Scarborough has his moments here and there, but he's mostly their boy the rest of the time. So that is the key difference here. They will never, ever have a Republican to counter the talking points, and the Democrats they're hiring there are very much there just to keep repeating White House talking points if there's a Democrat White House.
Scott, would it be better for those of us on the right if Republicans didn't all end up on Fox, if we spread them around a little bit more?
That'd be great, but Kruiser points out the great difficulty in that is how do you get spread out more, because you have to sort of take an oath of office when you go to MSNBC that if you do speak of Republicans, you must only do so in a denigrating fashion. And I think he's absolutely right about that. They love getting a guy who will, you know, if John McCain were ever going to leave Congress, which he is not except on a stretcher, then he would be the perfect kind of guy, because they know they can get him on there and he's going to, you know, he's going to be the straight talk express and he's going to badmouth the Republicans. It becomes very difficult. I do think Republicans would be wise to take advantage of the platforms that they now have on the internet, things like PJTV and other outlets where we can find ways to connect with people that are outside of the mainstream. And local reporters, frankly, are the only hope for the future of this republic when it comes to journalism, those people who are not completely within the Beltway.
Answer this question for me, because we've all worked various places, gone on to do other things. Sometimes we have our friends at the organization that we talk to, we get information from, they keep us in the loop. The longer you're gone, the more out of the loop you are. How in the loop are these people when they leave the White House and they go to work for CNN? How often do you think they talk to their pals at the White House? Because the sword cuts both ways. You can use them as your mouthpiece on television, But occasionally, even CNN will run reports that the White House won't like. And I could see a scenario where they see you no longer as their former coworker, but they see you as part of working for the enemy. How symbiotic are they?
I like Scott's analogy about it being one organization in the beginning. I think they've got one big intellectual coffee room right now. I don't think that they're separate at all. I mean, this is a system that they've set up for 50 years now. This started with Pierre Salinger leaving the Kennedy administration and going to work for NBC at the time. So this is something that's been going on a long time. They've had a long time to perfect this. So I don't. This door revolves so quickly that on a hot day you could stand outside it and fan yourself. And I don't think that there's any way to really separate them anymore. And there is. I don't like to disagree with Scott much, but there is one other way that John McCain will leave the Senate is if long shot candidate Lindsey Graham wins the White House, John McCain becomes our new First Lady.
Oh, dear. Scott, we'll throw it to you. How often do you think these people talk to one another?
Yeah, I would guess with some frequency. I don't think that suddenly they are pushed out. Now, they also understand what the game is because they've played it on the inside. I mean, when you see Dan Pfeiffer, slinging that line that he was given by the White House, wasn't that just ridiculous? What he was basically saying, well, it's not, the law is not important, and who wrote the talking points is not important. I thought, wow, I should have tried that with my grandmother because I was raised by my grandparents. I should have tried that sometime. After I broke something and she said, who broke this? I should have said, Nanny, it's not important who broke it. What's important is that we make sure it never happens again. That's really true. This guy was just the worst of the worst. This guy is the Tariq Aziz of the White House.
Every time when Robert Gibbs was there, I kept thinking nobody can be worse than this guy, and almost everyone they've had in a communications position since then has been exponentially worse than Robert Gibbs.
Then they found this load.
Yeah.
All right, that's all the time we have for today, but now it's your turn. Will low ratings and losing trust ever cause the major news networks to stop hiring White House hacks? Or are they already too cozy to ever split up? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.